Alexander, you can turn on your video.
Hey, yeah, 2 seconds.
Just going to introduce you as well, get your video going. Hey, there he is. Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Lugano Finance Forum's blockchain session. My name is Maggie Rokum-Testi, and I am the head of strategic investments at Copernicus Wealth Management and the portfolio manager for Pangea Blockchain Fund. I'm excited to be here this afternoon, where we will be covering many interesting topics in the blockchain space, including NFTs, decentralized finance, investing in crypto, and much more. It's a true pleasure to introduce our first speaker, our first guest. Aleksander Larsen is the COO of Pangea's first unicorn, Sky Mavis, the creators of play-to-earn NFT game, Axie Infinity. Some of you may remember Alex from 2 years ago when we had the Lugano Finance Forum. Alex was presenting Axie when it was still just a concept and it was a very small company. Fast forward to today, Axie has become the fastest growing game in the world, blockchain game in the world, the top centralized application on Ethereum, and the #1 NFT product by daily volume. So Alex, thank you so much for taking time to be with us, at least virtually. Before we talk more in detail about Axie, could you explain to the public who might not necessarily know what NFTs are, what they are and why they're such an important invention?
Sure. Hi, Maggie, and thank you for having me back. So yeah, my name is Aleksander, as you said, one of the co-founders of Sky Mavis, and we're broadly known as one of the industry experts within NFTs. For those who don't know what NFTs are, it basically means that it's a non-fungible token, or it's a unique digital asset that can be represented by many different things. So in Axie Infinity, for example, we use NFTs to represent digital game characters. Now, this has been possible to an extent before, by not using NFTs, but when you use NFTs, you're storing the assets on an open blockchain, which means that they can be transferred potentially between games, and anyone can see what you own in your wallet. So if you would compare it to fungible tokens, like let's say Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even dollars, those assets can always be changed one to one. So $1 is always the same, or well, almost always the same, and you can exchange it for any other dollar. But each non-fungible token, or each Axie, for example, is unique because it has unique metadata inside it. So if I want to trade my Axie against your Axie, well, we have to figure out what makes one thing more value than the other. And in the NFT space, it's not only about game assets. You can also use it to represent art pieces. Like probably the most famous thing is the Beeple sale. For those of you who have been following the art scene, it's very exciting there too. But what our thesis has been since the beginning is that normal people, they find it hard to understand what happens when you sell an art NFT, because you've sold the NFT, but you can still see the art piece. But it's very clear when it's about a game asset which has utility, because if you have the game asset in your wallet, it means that you can use it. And the moment that you sell it, you can't use it inside the game. It's very clear. And that's why we believe that game NFTs or game characters will be what brings NFTs to the masses. And that's already happening in Axie.
Okay, so we see some of your little Axies behind you on the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of a game Axie Infinity really is?
Yeah, so Axie Infinity is a game universe, or we could call it a collection of games where you use your cute Axie game characters, like the ones that you have behind me, in, for example, battle against other players. So similar to, let's say, Pokemon battles, where you have a team of 3 Axies and you battle against other players. Now, that's one of the games. And we have a breeding game as well, where you breed your Axies with other Axie game characters, and out pops a new one. And that's also a part of how we make money. So we make money whenever an Axie is being bred, for example, or whenever players are, they are trading Axies on our marketplace because they might want to upgrade their roster of battle Axies, or they might want to increase their roster of Axies for breeding. And the interesting thing here is that, in Axie, it's been traded over $3.1 billion worth of NFTs on our own marketplace, which is significantly higher than any other NFT project in the space.
It's actually amazing what's happened in just the last few months, basically, because if I remember correctly, Axie had about 30,000 daily active users, in May, and now you are above 2 million. Is that correct?
It was well, I mean, it was about in March where we had about 30,000. Now it's about 2.5 million daily active players. And when you look at also revenue, I mean, in March, we had about $243,000 in direct revenue. And if you zoom out a little bit and go to August, we had $364 million in revenue. So far in the past 365 days, we've crossed over $1.1 billion in revenue.
It's amazing. So Axie is described as a play-to-earn game. What exactly are play-to-earn games, and why is this the kind of game that you think will disrupt the gaming industry?
Yeah, so play-to-earn is a term that we coined in Axie, but many other games have tried to make similar games like this over the years. What it basically means is that we're rewarding the user who is playing the game and adding value to the game by receiving a token in return. And it's up to us as the game company to add value to those tokens as well. So if you play Axie and you win against someone else inside the battle game, you can earn a token, which is called the SLP token, or you can earn another token of ours, which is called the AXS token if you're placing high on the leaderboard. So in other games, you might call it similar to silver or gold, for example, where AXS would be the most rare thing you can find. Now, these assets, they have real world value because other players want to buy them, because we've created an ecosystem where they need to be used inside various other areas of our game. And what's great here is that, when we're building on blockchain technology, everything, or the decentralized financial aspect of it is something that we can use. So, for example, we can make easily marketplaces. We can allow players to trade and exit into fiat currencies very easily. When back in the day, you might have to rely on other big banks, for example, to do all these things. Now you're able to bypass that, and you can design a game from the beginning where the economy is open and where players truly own not only their game data, but also the resources that they find inside the game, and they can then monetize their time. And the question here is really, how is it possible that we can give like monetary rewards or tokens and rewards to players who are just playing the game, because people are thinking about them in the traditional game sense. Like, you don't think about game players generally as adding that much value, but we think about them as network participants. And in Axie, everything that we try to do is make the network as big as possible. The way that the blockchain works is that we can monetize from the beginning of the product's lifecycle until the very, very end, but we are monetizing less than many other game studios, or at least traditional, Web 2.0 game studios, where the idea is that you would extract as much value as you can from the players. But our belief is that if you just extract a little bit and you let people use the marketplace as much as they want, so that they can make their own businesses, their own companies inside the Axie Infinity game and monetize from there, well, that will just make the pie bigger for everyone. And that's really what unlocks these massive economies.
Now, in order to play Axie, you mentioned earlier, you need three Axies, which has become a bit more expensive than it was initially, thanks to the huge success of Axie Infinity. What have you done in the past, and what are you planning on doing to make it easier for players, especially in emerging markets who are a large part of your client base, your game base, to be able to afford to participate in Axie?
Yeah, so right now, when you want to play Axie, I like to compare it to. I like to compare Axie Infinity to being on an island way out at sea. The only way you can get there right now is if you actually have someone who is, you're driving in a boat with them to the island. So basically, what I mean there is that you're teaching them to play the game. Players can also try to swim to get to the island. Basically, they can try to do all of the things themselves, but there's a high chance of drowning, or that we will get scammed along the way, or lose all your assets because it's so hard to get started. Of course, that's not the way it should be. And like what we're doing right now is working on building that bridge to the island, so that it will get easier for people to play. Like in the end, what we want is it to be as easy as playing any type of Web 2.0 game. So when you're going on in the iOS store or Google Play Store, you'll see Axie. You can play the game and you can buy your game characters. Right now, you can't even download Axie Infinity on the Apple Store or Google Play Store. You need to sideload the application or go to our website simply to play the game. And still, we're seeing all of this tremendous growth. Now, what this tells us is that when we are opening it up for everyone, the potential for growth further from here is pretty massive. And that's, of course, what a lot of people are betting on when they see our roadmap. So what we're working on right now, to be very clear, is a free-to-play version of Axie, so that anyone in the whole world can just experience the game and see if they truly like the gameplay, if they find that it's fun, and then they can become blockchain players from there, where they might interact with the broader economy. So it's more like a demo version for those of you who are familiar with games of the past.
Cool. Axie is built on Ethereum blockchain, like many of these NFTs are, which remains obviously a dominant protocol. And I know you guys believe deeply in the Ethereum blockchain. It has become an expensive place to play, to transact, because transaction costs have actually gone through the roof, and they tend to go up quite a bit every time Ether goes up. Is this one of the reasons why Sky Mavis decided to develop their own sidechain called Ronin?
Yeah, exactly, Maggie. So when we started building on Ethereum, it was very early in 2018. And we naively came into the space thinking that, well, Ethereum is going to scale. It's going to be easy for us to deploy the type of game that we actually want. What it turned out is that building decentralized technology on the bleeding edge is really, really, really hard. So what we also discovered is that there's nobody else in the world who understands the problems that we're facing in at least in the same scope as we are doing, because we were so far ahead of everyone else. So what we did is we kind of took a step back, and at first we tried to use another scaling technology, and then turned out that they didn't really understand our problems either. So we just had to go back from scratch and start building from there. So we took pieces of existing infrastructure and tied it together, which is built using the Ethereum virtual machine, which basically means that we can tie into the existing Ethereum ecosystem and tap into things like existing decentralized exchanges and also the Ethereum community. The only trade-off there is that it's a little bit less decentralized, but for us, that's okay, because we have built the trust from the community since the beginning, and there's still so much trust required when you are building a game that people actually need to trust you, because you can make many changes to it, like balance changes. So we took a step back, and we made our own side chain, which of course is another product of ours. It's called the Ronin Network, which will have its own token, similar to what you would have in Matic or basically Polygon right now, or Ether. So it's used to power the Ronin Network as gas. So incredibly excited to finally release that, because what it means is that we can scale Axie Infinity from not only 2.5 million to maybe 250 million or 2 billion people. Like, that's the end goal here. And that Ronin network can also power other game studios in the future. But we have to make sure that it's actually working for our needs first.
Because you mentioned before that when you play the game, you win SLP, or you make SLP tokens. Then you have the AXS, and then you have RON. So you now have 3 tokens in the ecosystem. How do they work together, and can they be monetized? Maybe talk a little bit about the village in the Philippines as well while you're at it.
Yeah, sure. So when we started, we basically made a change inside Axie where when you in other games you might earn experience points when you're playing after a match. Then we changed that and we turned it into SLP, so that anyone who won a match, they would earn some SLP. And at the beginning of it, it wasn't really it didn't really take off because it was so hard to understand exactly what was happening. So it took maybe half a year before people, for example, started to realize that, hey, I can actually play the game, earn some tokens, use Uniswap, and then, hey, presto, I have suddenly got Ether or USDC or USDT, and I can put food on the table. So we started seeing that a village in the Philippines were playing an extraordinary amount more than anyone else, and it had started growing organically there because it was actually replacing their jobs. And that was the beginning of the Axie viral growth in the Philippines. So right now, I would estimate we have about 600,000-700,000 players purely in the Philippines, which is pretty incredible. And there is even a lot of influencers, a lot of parties happening, and the meetups, and people are basically feeding their entire villages playing our games. So the responsibility here is massive, and what we are trying to do as a game studio is making sure that this will last for an extended period of time, so that we are very careful about the in-game economy. And that also relates to the other tokens that we have in our ecosystem. So SLP, like, that's not a token that we as a team is selling. The only way that they can get it is actually by playing the game. And it has only one use case, that is to breed new Axies. When you look at the other tokens, we have the AXS token, which is, I think, ranked 25th on CoinMarketCap right now, with a market cap of about 8 billion. That it has a very clear use case too. It's the governance token for the Axie Infinity entire ecosystem. So all of the revenue that we get, we're putting that into a treasury wallet, basically, which then can be governed by the token holders of Axie Infinity. So it's one of the most cash generating products in the entire crypto space. So I would, by looking at our other competitors, I would say that the valuation is definitely deserved. And then we have the new one, which is the Ronin network token, which is going to be used as the governance token for the Ronin blockchain network, which then again is created to power not only Axie, but all of the other game studios and all of the other Axie games that we as a company called Sky Mavis will then produce or publish. So basically, long story short, is we see a future where Sky Mavis is a category defining company in the Web3 space. And everything that we do is to make sure that we can provide the tools and services for other game studios, because we are building them for ourselves first. And the exciting thing here is that it's not only about game studios, it's also about making financial technology. So whenever we are making when we are making a decentralized exchange like the newly released Katana DEX, which has over $1.3 billion locked right now, that is actually a service only for game players, but it can also be used for e-commerce or for to provide services for other people who just want to use crypto as their bank account. So we're basically banking the unbanked to an extent by letting them play a game, which I think is incredibly powerful, especially when you think at we have maybe when I'm looking at the stats here, 50% of our users have never used any sort of crypto technology before, and 25% of our user base has never had a bank account before. Now that's probably not something to consider too much in Lugano, but across the world, not everyone has access to bank accounts, right? So we're incredibly excited about that, and we think the potential for the Ronin network is massive.
Well, congratulations on growth and on your views for the future. One last thing is you just recently launched also a decentralized exchange, Katana, to help the whole ecosystem stick together, work together. Is this another, you think this is going to be expanded to other cryptocurrencies, or will it be only used for your own purposes?
Yeah, so right now, when you are using the Katana DEX, its own Ronin chain, it supports only wrapped Ether, SLP, AXS, and USDC, because those are the tokens that are used inside the Axie Infinity ecosystem. And it also goes back to our thesis that, we need to solve problems for ourselves first. So that's why we don't want, general decentralized finance that's irrelevant to Axie Infinity on the Ronin network so that it fills up the blocks. We need to make sure that it's actually working, that it's actually stable, and then we can support other tokens in the future. So we get so much inbound every day of people who want to use Ronin. Of course they would, because we're one of the few products in the entire space who actually has real users that actually works. So I think in the future we'll support more, but for now we're very happy with just keeping it the way it is. It has, as I mentioned, a little bit over $1.3 billion locked in there. So there is a lot of room to grow. And why are people locking up their tokens there? Well, because they can farm Ronin tokens. So we are having like a very interesting campaign right now where people who are farming, who are providing liquidity on the Ronin network, they can farm Ronin tokens for the next, I think it's 45 days. So should be very exciting to see how that goes.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to talk to us, and hopefully next time we'll be able to welcome you here in Lugano again.
Yes, would love to be back. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.